and have on top of it. No, I'm just,
So you're sure you're ready to run, right?
what I look at is, yeah, do I really want to do it this year?
Hey, it's 6 p.m. August the 3rd. We have our special city council meeting budget workshop. Roll call.
Jim Phillips.
Jim Richards.
Ryla Nyhorst.
Dana Bergner.
Lori is sick. So this evening, we're starting the process of our 2023 budget workshop. And Sunny has put together, I'd like to have some discussion and comments. We have something on our desk here that she's put together of information. So with that, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. The first, you have two items on your dais. The first one is just a fund report, which I wanted you to give you so that you know what different funds you have. So primarily, you know, the information that you need to know is the left. Probably the far right column really doesn't have any meaning at this point. But you can see that you actually have 20 total funds. Some of those are, you can see like 100 is your general fund. And that's going to be the big one that every city has is a general fund. And then typically cities have other enterprise funds, what they call enterprise funds, which would be similar to your water fund, your sewer fund, and some have other utilities that could be electric, could be, you know, your fire department is typically a separate one. Not always, but those are kind of, the enterprise funds theoretically are supposed to be self-sustaining. Whatever revenues you bring in should be used for the expenditures in those funds. Conversely, your general fund is really the one that's affected by your levy. That's where the property taxes tend to come into play. And your levy is based on your property values. So that's how the taxes are calculated. And there's the formula, of course, not only for the city portion, but the county portion, your school district, as you know, on your property tax statement. And you may have some other special districts. A watershed is often a special district. So those are, but I wanted you to know about those if you haven't already, and so if this is my first budget review with you, so if I'm kind of, you already know all this stuff, just forgive me for going through this. So that is one piece that I kind of want to talk about when we come back to visit that. The second piece that you have is an income statement that's going to show a 5-year comparison. So you have your budgets for the last 5 years, and then your actuals for the last 5 years as well. With 2022, your budget number is the full amount of your budget for all 12 months. The actual is going to be through today. And that's a lot of information to absorb too. And I know you're just getting it tonight, so we can walk through it.
I've got a kind of just a general question on looking at that with property taxes and that. Going back and looking at 2020, we were way off on that one then from the budget to the actual.
And I can explain that, if you don't mind.
No, please.
So what that was in 2020, and you'll see that it's also, this would apply to the 2019, 28. In the past, the CIP fund, which is down here on this, the 425 on this first sheet that you talked about, capital improvement fund.
Okay,
In the past, with the previous staff, they did not include that in the, to be included in the general fund.
okay, so it wasn't
So-
as far off as what that shows. then.
So it was typically $100,000 in CIP or 120,000, something like that. So,
But that was still quite a difference enough of that too then.
right, and that was the start of some, it wasn't last year. So that was part of the difference, but why the 944,000, that, well, it's probably showed up here someplace. Part of that actual is if you look at the CARES revenue, dropped down about 2 inches. That's when we received 113,000 in CARES funding. So this is all revenue on this first page. So that is another figure that impacted that 944 was the revenue from, no, I take that back. The property taxes didn't include that because that's just a standalone item. So
Right.
I know CIP contributed that, but what the difference is, there must have been some other. Yeah.
And then
I guess I can't tell you.
No, I was just, again, I was just looking at it. And I know Sonny and I were talking a little bit beforehand on how we're gonna look at this for next year with inflation being where it's at and, looking at how that's gonna affect it. And also with the chances that our property values could actually be going down next year because of what's going on.
Keep in mind, the property taxes, we get 2 tax payments a year from the county. This 559,000 is the first one. The second one will come in December. That's why the actual in 2021 was 851,000. So typically the December property tax revenue is in that $400,000+. So when comparing apples to apples, the actual of 2022 is going to be close to the 2021 or might be just slightly more.
Mayor, if I could also add, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think 2020 is when you had a change in personnel too. And sometimes when that happens, somebody who's coded for 5 years has already figured out where things belong. And then somebody coming in new, learning the new chart of accounts and stuff, maybe coding things a little bit different. But I made a note and we can check on that too. But you're right, that's an anomaly that, that normally we would be able to define for you.
Okay. So does that explain the difference in the comparing it to the 851,000 where we're at today with 559?
Yeah, no, that makes sense on what there is for the other that's going to be coming in. So are we basically on track this year for where we were at?
I think that's what
Sonny?
Sonny's going to go through.
Okay. I mean, and we're going
We're not
ahead,
gonna
but
rush.
I just wanted to see where we were at. So.
Right. And for purposes of this discussion tonight, what you have in terms of this 5-year comparison is only on the Fund 100, your general fund.
Okay.
So I didn't want to bombard you with a whole lot of information. And like I say, those other enterprise funds really should be self-sufficient and self-supporting. And part of the budgeting process is also doing the analysis on your fee schedules, because you'll adopt that effective January 1st as well. So we want to make sure that both documents are kind of reflective of each other too. And we know that there are some things not included on your your fee schedule that really should be, and we should be talking about some of those things too. In terms of gearing up as you plan for new businesses to come to town, we need to be able to address those in terms of a business licensure. So that somebody sees a vacant building, they want to buy the vacant building, and they do so and set up shop, but they haven't come into the office to figure out, are they really in line with our zoning? Is there any licensures that they need to do? All those kind of things that are really housekeeping and ministerial things that we administratively need to do. So part of that is evaluating your fee schedule and making some adjustments. And some of that may also need to be tied to code changes. So this is, it gets better and better is what I like to say. One thing leads to another. So to your question, how are we doing? So if you look at the second page, then you're looking at all of the revenues combined, and the budget, again, for 12 months was nearly $1,150,000. And through 7 months and 3 days or whatever, we're at 675. And we know that we have a second property tax payment coming in. So that I think revenue wise, I'm thinking we're probably going to be pretty close. You know, there are some things that I do want to take a look at, and no reflection on Renee at all either, but and then she came on in 2021. So there again is another shift in terms of how it might be coded. So we'll take a look at that. Questions so far on that?
No questions are into the nitty-gritty of it.
And please
Do
know.
nitty-gritty. Do nitty-gritty.
Yeah. Well,
And as our workshops progress, we'll be drilling down and getting closer and closer to that preliminary budget they have to adopt by September 30th.
so do we have any other liquor license in town other than Tilly's?
Cash or
Gas and Go.
gas and go.
Oh, that's right, Gas and Go. Okay,
On sales of, I think, $100 for Sunday only.
that's not a lot. And so does Gas and Go and Casey's have to do a food license too? They're selling hot food.
Not through us, no.
Okay.
We only do the mobile food trucks.
Oh, and Tilly's, right?
We don't even do Tilly's. That's going to be probably licensed through the county health department.
Oh, okay.
When
So
they're
we don't
actually
get
fixing
any
and
of that.
preparing.
Okay.
Yeah, there are certainly some revenue opportunities that I think you're missing, but
Why are we so high in donations?
We're
about an inch from the bottom, budgeted 8,000 and you received 19,766. I could be wrong, and I'd have to look at the detail. But last year in 2021, I see we're significantly under. It could be timing, perhaps on, pledges versus receiving.
I thought we also got like, what was it? $13,000 for the house that burnt. Would that be
The
in
fire
there?
department.
Fire
is
department.
definitely part of it too, that we weren't budgeting for.
or whatever that amount was, but
It was
I-
11,000.
was it 11,000? Yeah.
Mhm.
But that really shouldn't be a donation, then.
That
It was a donation to the fire department, so it might be coded through that. But then
But why isn't it in
donations have their
donations
own
fire
line.
department?
Or fire department, yeah, has their own line.
But they're at zero
Right, that's what I'm
all the
wondering.
way across on everything. So there's never been anything put in there.
Because
Typically,
where's
the
our
donations
10%?
come through the fire relief fund.
Yeah, the fire rate
Yeah.
or
is
fire
at
relief fund.
10%.
I think that's where some of the donations come through.
I feel like that's something we would be good at clarifying to Sunny.
But I think, like, for instance, the pull tabs. Ryland, was it before we really found out how the pull tab should be in terms of, you know, we can't really use it, we have to donate it?
Yeah,
That $6,000, we were just budgeting on that, on having that at that point, right? Because we found out, I think, mid-year that we couldn't.
yeah, that was, I think the pull tabs come into our capital improvement fund under fire revenue, which I don't think we have it in front of us here, but
Yeah, I'm just looking at the 6,000 budgeted for 2020 on the first sheet. It says pull tabs.
oh, I see.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Don't
actually,
have
we have
donations, you don't have anything.
what's that?
There's nothing in that
No,
pull tabs.
so I'm just wondering,
Never have
So
it.
if
Yeah.
we're gonna be losing Tilly's next year,
right?
No,
That's
it's
good.
not gonna go. It'd be a new owner running the restaurant again. This has happened multiple times.
okay.
The restaurant will stay,
We
he'll
hope.
just get someone else to take over.
No, I mean, I was looking, because I know those pull tabs, and that's been pretty
Yeah.
good for the fire
It
department.
kind of-
for that.
It cycles through different people every so often.
Yeah.
I don't really know the
I mean,
reasoning, but
and we hope, I mean, I would be looking forward to it actually happening. I do worry a little bit about the inflation and economy. I mean, we don't know. She's leaving because of increase in rent. But I agree, most of the time people pick it up and go because they see it's an established business.
right.
So,
I mean, yeah, you're right, though. It's not a guarantee, but that's kind of just
right.
historically, that's how that business has operated.
Let's see, oh yeah, our building permits are down. What was the local government aid? Was there something that we were expecting on that? Ryland, do you remember?
Well, the
Was that the
91,000, we have
COVID?
that.
What's that?
The 91,000,
Yeah,
okay, that's one time, one yearly payment. And for whatever reason, 2023 is going down to around a little over 84,300, something like that.
so that zero, oh, so what this really means, did we get the 91,000?
I don't know if we've got
I
it yet or
haven't seen
not.
it yet.
Okay,
You?
Yeah,
okay.
We dance when anything over 500 comes in.
We what?
We dance when anything over $500 comes.
That'd have been big party time. So when's that supposed to come in, or we don't know?
I'm very guaranteed it. Was it the July, August timeframe? I could be wrong.
Well, they just certified for next year.
Right.
So there's always that lag time.
Yeah,
Okay, so that's gonna come in.
Can someone explain to me what reimbursements are? On the very last line.
The very last line here. Wow. Sorry. Do you remember that? The bottom line there.
3507. Let me just look at last year's 30, give you a better idea.
Oh, 75.
So in last year, in 2021, what did we show there? 2741. They came from reimbursements from First Supply, Bevcom, Zumbro River Fiber Arts Guild, the Gold Rush food permits was like $2,270. And that equals at $2,741.
Why is that reimbursed?
So
I'm just confused of how it's coded, but it doesn't matter. You guys can
I
figure
think
it
it's
out.
kind of I don't say it's just it's an account that we can put funds coming in that we don't have a line item and it's just kind of lumped
Yeah, but
into
we have a
reimbursement.
miscellaneous one. There is a miscellaneous revenue one.
I don't think there's miscellaneous revenues, 36,210,
200.
and let me see what that was.
Anyway, I mean, these are just questions I'm bringing up because it's
And those
confusing.
are bank
And
interest
that's fine.
funds.
And that's,
Bank interest funds.
Agreement.
Was
The
it
miscellaneous,
It was
no,
in miscellaneous, no.
36,200 is miscellaneous.
No, I'm sorry. I looked at the wrong one. That's funds comes in from the township, Aflac reimbursable to the city,
So it sounds similar to the reimbursements.
Dane Dolan, Dane and golf permits. It's just miscellaneous $5 checks. There's one check from security agreements. The security agreements is where we work with the developer. In this case, we were working with the Orinoco Storage. And there's a $4,000 security agreement. And in this case, as Joe Palin takes care of reviewing the plans and everything, he bills towards that $4,000. And what's ever left of that $4,000 that we don't use for Joe Palin's engineering, then we reimburse the SD Ventures with what's left in the security agreement.
And could some of those things, Ryland, that are mentioned, I guess I'd look at Sunny too, some of those things, because I heard licensures, food license, some of it could be just the way it was coded
Yeah, there's
in the year, because I would see food license to be food license,
Right. and that's where you really, and this will be part of the personnel committee's conversation too, but in terms of staffing, to have somebody, to assist with the accounting functions, to help with utilities, so kind of crafting that third position to really best serve the city and provide that continuity and stuff. And again, no reflection on Renee. I mean, she's covering so many bases that our heads spin some days, don't we?
So then, would this be our job as a council to clean up, or is it the staff's job? So, just to kind of make some of these make more sense.
Well, theoretically, I would say, in my experience, it has been staff's responsibility to be looking at all of the transactions that are going into a specific account. And if you look at the actual transaction register, those anomalies will stand out. Kind of like a typo on a page for me. It's kind of like, after doing finance and accounting for so long, but it is really that on staff. But that speaks to making sure that you have the capacity in terms of staffing.
And
to be able to
continuity,
do that. Absolutely.
that's where we've struggled with that continuity of,
Yeah, because it should be staff put it in and we just review it and say, okay, this is good. And we use it as a planning tool and not have to necessarily get down deep to see if everything was coded right, unless something stands out.
Right. And doing exactly what you're doing tonight. It's kind of like, and you've already noted, it's kind of like, well, why is that? And it's kind of like, wow. And you weren't here in 2021 either. So, but it's kind of like, this is all before my time, pretty much. So, but those are the kind of questions that as council you want to look at, and staff should be in a position to answer you. and being able to provide you the information that you need to actually do that. And typically, I'm gonna say that there has been, you know, somebody that, you know, if you wanted to be the mayor or, you know, somebody designated as kind of the finance person that wants to, or you have a finance person on staff that's gonna attend your council meetings and be the one to say, yeah, I entered that. I know why I did it there, kind of that whole kind of thing. So when those questions arise, you should have an adequate answer. And I'm gonna speak to that. My hope is, and where I'm trying to lead you to as council, and then also on committees, is really to get you to the point where your city staff should be the hub where all the information is stored and disseminated. So like, much like, you know, the city administrator is doing for the city council, and Renee did as deputy clerk before. We do the agenda. If you want something on there, let us know. Prepare the agenda. We make sure you have all the supporting documentation that you have, and you get that packet, hopefully at least a week in advance. Last month was kind of off, but that, what staff should be doing for the council should also be happening for the planning and zoning people, for the other committees that you have. So when I talk about the different funds you have, you need to make sure that the funds that you have represented are reflective of what the city wants. You know, for example, I'm not going to pick on Gold Rush because they have been very helpful and beneficial for the city. But at one point in time, it was actually a fund of the city. And it's subsequently gone to its own 5030.
Nonprofit,
yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, Rylan, but then you also, did you have a recent bylaw change? Or is it still? We updated
to include township members.
Okay.
There's the only change. Maybe a township, I think was the last change.
So then, in terms of, because you are a separate, not you, because Gold Rush is a separate organization, it really needs to function as a separate organization.
They would have their own funds and manage their own funds.
Yeah,
Exactly.
because it's a nonprofit too. You don't want to have commingling funds.
Right. But even in terms of, you should have your own website and maintain your own website. The city can have a link, can certainly, you know, put a link on our city website that's going to direct them to you, but listing all of the activities and meetings and that sort of thing on the city calendar really shouldn't be happening.
Well, I think we have to do it because we're a city, because it's a city made up of the city council.
But we're a standalone.
And we've been
corporation.
It's been challenged forever. And if we do anything without posting or whatever, there will be people coming after us.
But as a board, we follow the open meeting laws.
We do, but that's why we do
it.
Yeah.
We do it because of that, but because we're city council, if we were just a regular nonprofit, we wouldn't have to.
But do we have to do it on our website is what she's saying, or should you guys be doing it through the Gold Rush website?
Well, because we're city council member, I thought we had to.
Well, and that can be, you know, just part of, you know, next to the link, you know, that, but really.
We shouldn't house it.
But nothing is housed.
Is what you're saying.
Nothing's housed on our on the city website. I'm confused. What do you mean? I have
We put everything on the community calendar. So all your
Just the
meetings, your
calendar,
agendas, all your meeting minutes, all of that is posted on our website.
right. But that's because it's city, because we're city council, I thought. I've always been confused too, but I was told it was because we're city council, we have to do it that way.
we have to follow the open meeting laws, which is if there's a quorum of city council members at a meeting, we need to follow the open meeting laws. So that's part of why we're set up the way we are with it. But we're a nonprofit. We have a secretary, we have a treasurer, we have a financial administrator, financial secretary. This Gold Rush Fund this has kind of been kind of a mystery to me, because if you go back in some of these years, it was kind of a slush fund. Where stuff went when it didn't have anything to be used for, or where you go back to look at some of the revenue expenditure reports in 2020 and beyond, going back, it was kind of misused.
Okay.
And so it's, in my opinion, the fund should go away. But I'd like to have you look at that a little bit closer to see if it can go away.
I would agree with you, Ryland, because I think let Gold Rush handle their funds. And if we need something for the city, we need to understand something that's reported from that committee, but we don't manage it.
Right. Well, and the reason part of this came to my mind too, and I do understand what you're saying, but that's much the same as when we posted for this meeting for the city council. We also made note that there was a potential for a quorum of other committees, because other committees of the city also have to follow open meeting laws, right?
Right.
Okay, so now we have Paul, but he's not a quorum, right? Oh, yeah. Well, so 3 of you now, yeah, you are.
There's
So,
3 of us, yeah.
Yeah. So do you see how this is kind of paralleling? So what I'm suggesting is that as the separate entity of Gold Rush, you need to be the ones posting that as well. That membership of Gold Rush is comprised of the entire city council. And
agendas.
And meetings will likely include a quorum of city council meeting members, but they are there for the Gold Rush committees.
So you're saying we should take Gold Rush off the city community calendar? Is that what you're ultimately saying?
I would suggest that, yes.
And maybe a
Really
link
trying to
that-
separate them.
Yeah,
in
maybe a
terms of-
link that goes to them,
Absolutely.
you know, like Gold. I mean, your link could be Gold Rush Committee or
I
whatever.
believe there
it
is one on there
We
already.
should have any
for-
links. If we're trying to separate it, we shouldn't have links.
I think you
Well,
share
a
a
link
copy of
is
the-
different than,
than posting the information.
yeah, posting all the
The
information,
link is
because,
a reference to another
right.
entity.
Because really then what is, here's my thing is,
I do.
and I'm always fearful about setting precedent. And so what's to keep another,
I was just gonna say, another
Nonprofit.
nonprofit to say, hey, put my link on your city website.
Yeah.
How am I any different?
Yeah.
That's I.
And that's a possibility, with our age-friendly Orinoco. It's probably a good time to.
so as we talk
So
about
it's,
these kind of things,
I
I
don't
want to
mean
bring them up.
But there are committees like age-friendly, if we do become nonprofit status and resolutions. And I'll send you a copy of our bylaws if you haven't seen it. Maybe
Yeah, I
you've
would
seen it.
like that. please.
Yeah,
So
but we don't want to digress too much from what we're trying to do here tonight, so.
what I do want to quick understand legally, because it has been an issue, there's been challenges multiple times about us doing things, Gold Rush doing things illegally. And so I just think if we removed it from the city website and from posting it, then we would just make those people even more enraged and come after.
That's,
So I'm confused, I'm just confused. We probably need some help from,
I think we need Mike to kind of get involved with that, wouldn't he?
I mean, we've done it. That's the
Okay, I
thing.
would
It's
just-
like, I feel like we've kind of, this is where you landed long before I joined, but this is where it landed because of that. You know what I mean? Like, so it's been looked into. I mean, maybe we do have to revisit it, I don't know, but it seems like, I mean, we just recently have had trouble, right? So what, if now all of a sudden we took everything off, can you imagine how that would make those people feel?
But
So,
I think it's also, I maybe look at it as an opportunity, say, okay, we're just gonna keep these.
You know, because I,
separate.
but then
yeah,
don't you
I
think,
agree with the
But you can't-
nonprofit,
I
but
don't
you
think you can
gotta
do that.
find some way to make a.
but don't you think then we'd have
separation.
to keep it separate by not having the whole council on?
It's the council perspective.
That's
that
the
keeps it
problem.
on.
It's the quorum that when we're together, that's always been the problem, right? Like that, it's not just. And this isn't coming from us, this is coming from a few people in
Yeah.
town. And
And I see what Ryland's.
I think it's scary, right? Like you don't want to be accused all the time of breaking the law, and that's what's been happening.
I mean, I understand what Ryland is saying from a legal perspective. If it's all council, that's part of the city, and it's quorum.
Yeah.
And we have to announce that it's
We're
quorum.
covered by our insurance trust and everything else.
I know, that's.
I don't know, it's a hard
I
one. I
think
mean,
it's-
It is.
the
Most
mixture
likely
is hard.
It'll have to stay, but I will share the bylaws with you, and I would say raise your questions to our city attorney and have him
Yeah.
explain it to you.
I mean, I'd love to
Why it
figure,
is the way it is.
yeah, I'd love to figure something different out and I
Okay,
think that'd be great.
Well, and I think we need to- we have to do on that, then we're right back where we started with Gold Rush.
Well, I think it would just be a committee and there would only be two of us, because currently it's just me and Ryland that attend the meetings. I don't think we'd have three on it. You know what I mean? If we adopted it as a committee, then
which meeting?
if age friendly,
Oh, age
if we
friendly.
enveloped that into it would be more
Yeah,
of a
that's-
committee, just like P and Z or, whatever.
That's in its infant stages, and
Right.
we need to
Figure that out.
pattern how it's been done with other cities as well. We're not going to
Mhm.
reinvent something here that hasn't been already established by Pine Island or other Rochester or anybody else.
Mhm.
Because that'd be an easy look. There's other cities established.
Yeah, Gold Rush is goofy.
So one question I would have here is, I know some of these are at zero because, for instance, the government aid, because that hasn't been paid out. But at the end of the year, if some of these actuals are zeros, to me, that'd be a flag of, we should maybe visit it to see if they should even be here. Right?
Especially for so long, like the dam one.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Is that under the state disaster aid thing?
Well, I mean,
The fire
That was the part that was zeros all of a sudden.
The dam one.
I think that's part of staff's
316,000.
responsibility to figure it out.
Right.
You'll get 5 opinions here real quick. if you
Well,
want.
no, that one I can quickly answer for you, is there is an opportunity that you can just say zero activity, don't show, skip over that.
Mhm.
So that's an option. That's easily done.
Same thing for Oracle Park firewood revenue.
Mhm.
We don't do that anymore.
So if there are some things that are inactive, then we can, go even further and turn them off.
Just camping is one, whatever we said.
Well, we had budgeted for camping, but then we made a decision to not have the campground open, so that'll remain zero.
Yeah. Sometime it might come back.
Yeah.
So we really did, like in 2020, we did $2,700 from camping. Wow.
In 2020. Wow, look at
Yeah,
2019.
It was well used appropriately.
Mhm.
But like as we can't, like we said, the funds that come in are disproportionate to the amount of work that goes into policing it and fixing it, cleaning it.
And now this transfer in from other funds, it looks like that's something that we don't use.
There was one in 2018 though with that, which was
Yeah.
actual.
Yeah.
And
There was a journal entry for $25 in December. I read this report right.
you could take reimbursements from laundry and
Maybe that was in there and went someplace else.
yeah, right, over here in 2018 also for the reimbursements. I didn't know that you got 3,600 for that.
So
Yeah, I haven't looked at those. That looks like it just came from your audit.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
hundreds of journal entries every
So just being respectful of Paul's time, is there anything that we can address so Paul wouldn't have to necessarily sit here the whole time? Or would you like to sit here the whole time?
Kind of planning and zoning.
Yeah.
I know there'll be things for Kane. See, things like planning, zoning reimbursement's been zero for years. American Rescue Plan.
Yeah, that 40.
And one question I have, Sonny, in your experience, so with the water and sewer projects that you've been through them, how does a city normally plan? Because I'm thinking from a planning and zoning perspective. Does a city, how do they look at it and say, okay, we're going to plan, we're going to budget for a 2% growth or a 5% growth? Or is there any rule of thumb that we would do that?
Well, and part of that, and I'll just clarify that I have not been from, pre-zero, ground zero kind of thing. So typically my experience has been, doing an analysis of your surrounding community and just making sure that you're on track. And again, that will tie into your fee schedule and how you're doing that. Now, because you're going with a new facility and you have debt service that needs to be handled, that also has, and it just in the paperwork of doing your PFA and other documentation for funding, that kind of layout has already been performed probably by.
That meeting we had with Mike Bunny last year, were you at it?
Yeah.
We really, if you go back, I mean, like, it's kind of hard to remember, but it was like detailed as far as.
Yeah.
Did the planning.
Yeah.
October 18th
Yeah.
council meeting notes.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I wonder if we can get Jim a copy of that information.
it's on the website.
I probably have it here too.
The meeting notes.
The meeting note, yeah, I suppose. I just, like everybody takes their own notes. It'd be nice to.
Yeah. So there was,
I'm just.
yeah, I mean, we can share the file. So what we had Mike Babani, a financial planner, Joe and I, and we had to put together for PFA, explain to them how we're gonna service our debt with users and how many users we have and when they're coming online. And so we looked at 2023, when we start to pick up, late 2023 is when we pick up from July of 2023 to the end, it becomes operational and we'll be picking up the developments. Because lift stations will be in place, the grinder stations will be in place. But then after that, then there'll be a gradual increase the following year in 2024 when all the individual homes pick up. After that, we started looking at growth. And so we took a very conservative approach of 10 homes per year.
I remember that, yeah.
So that was kind of, even though we think that's going to be more than that, hopefully, but so that was a conservative approach. So that's a big, long spreadsheet. We can share that. That's no problem.
Yeah, no, I've got that.
And so that was all part of us coming up with our explanation of the PFA, how we're going to meet our goals. And part of that solution in the October 18th meeting was we're going to take $100,000 out of our CIP fund, which is in really good shape, if we heard from the audit. use that 100,000 for these first couple of years to help supplement that service to help offset some of our user rates.
And that's what I was wondering, in looking at, I guess I understand the 10 homes and everything, and I do remember that now that you're talking about it, but I'm thinking from the perspective of these, and do we even need to get to that level? I would think maybe to some of it, or I should say to this actually, do we try bake some of it fits right in this, like zoning, planning, zoning permits and things of that nature. But
well,
your sewer fund will be a separate.
right,
Enterprise.
but I'm just thinking
Bill,
community
that goes on
in general,
Mhm.
because you've got taxpayers coming into the community, you've got potential for businesses, you've got potential for, you know, food, restaurants and bars and things of that nature. And do we even touch that at this point?
Well, to the and that's really where planning and zoning comes in, is in terms of your zoning maps and making sure that you know, you have planned out what you want where.
Yeah, and
so that we can actually move away from doing so many variances and or conditional use permits or that sort of thing, and really get to more, let's get some homes built. Let's do those kind of things that actually are more revenue producing for us, as opposed to just lot splits or, you know, but I understand, you know, you've got some smaller lots that really, you know, maybe need to be combined and stuff as well.
and we did that in July of 2021. We did our future land use map. We went back and went through all our rezoning. So I believe as a council, I think we feel like that's in place where we're going zoning to move for the B1, B2, B3.
And
I'm
sorry. So has that then from council been shared with planning and zoning as well?
Well, that's that map up there behind us.
Okay.
in the community.
Okay, so that was all part of that development process and kind of. So to that extent, from the planning and zoning perspective, we maybe don't need to do an RFP if the groundwork has already been laid. Do you think, or?
Well, they are. I don't know if I'm allowed to speak in that, but.
It's a workshop.
Right.
If you're recognized, I'm sorry.
Yes, Paul, please go ahead. And I have some
So
comments.
from a planning and zoning perspective, I will say the future land use plan was all done and put together with Stantec, planning and zoning, city council, the community, developers, engagement with landowners, and taking into account the phases of the sewer project. All of that was done simultaneously. So when we designed it, we wanted to make sure that as things developed, we had adequate amount of like B1, B2, R1, R2, everything that could be supported by also the sewer project as well, because we were going with the 10 home thing, which we hope that's like way underestimated in reality, because we had some potential like senior aging homes and other things, which would have added a lot of use to the plan. But all of that was taken into account. So I feel we have a really good plan and layout of where things are at. There are some things that we need to update though. And one of those, and that's where that RFP discussion in our next meeting is going to be really about, is now that we have sewer, the lot size requirement, the minimum lot size requirement of 20,000 square feet is outdated. That is actually also going to stimulate further development, lot splits and other things. But we want to, and this is where we actually need the assistance of like a Stantec or somebody to come in and help us give the best practices, have those community engagement sessions with developers, landowners, and everybody, because it's going to be a phase thing. We don't want to just arbitrarily just say, oh, everything across the entire thing should be 8,000 square feet, because at the last planning and zoning, as you saw, Stantec did give us a preliminary sort of overview. And how would that look? Is that how we want Orinoco to look? And from a planning and zoning perspective, and back when we put the future land use plan together, we see the city council perspective, we still wanted our community feel. And so how we put things and where we put things and the size, in this case, of the lot does matter. And so there are areas where it doesn't, you can have smaller lots, but there's areas where we want bigger lots, and we don't want everything to be small, tiny little lots. We want to have that mix. And so that's where in the proposal and thing that we were talking about last time for the RFP, that's where we need the assistance, because it's going to take a lot of that planning, that community engagement, the developer engagement, but then all of that's got to translate into a new code, which is not something that I write.
And that's right.
And that's where you need those budgetary things and things. And so I'll just put one last footnote is having the $12,000 that we had, the $1,000 a month sort of thing, has been fabulous. As somebody who's been on planning and zoning for 5 years, never really had city staff even attend my meetings, right? When Sunny came, I was like, holy cow, what are you doing here? I'm like, that's odd. I'm like, okay. Because that wasn't how committee structure was set up, right? Staff would always support the council meetings, but not any of the other committee meetings. And so having that as a volunteer, that's very nice, okay? Otherwise, I was giving agendas and doing everything. Having that Stantec $12,000 has been super helpful from a committee, because they added clarity both for us, for Renee, everything, who are always struggling sometimes to interpret code, and things can go either way. Well, does this really meet the burden for a variance or not? But having them do an assessment and sort of type up and give us some findings of facts and questions and things to consider has been, I can't tell you how helpful that is for the committee, because now everybody has that. We can see, we can discuss. They will point out, these are some things you should clarify and verify, so that at the end of the day, we make the right decision as recommendation, as planning and zoning, and the council is then better informed with the full information. And it also makes it easier for you guys to do the resolutions and motions, because they already have it in a format that is more conducive to that. Especially since the way the meetings rotate, there's a short turnaround time between P&Z and you guys the following Tuesday. So I will tell you that service has been very valuable. So I hope, one of the reasons I came, is that sort of stays in the budget, because I think coming these next couple of years, we are going to see a lot more development. There's, in the past 5 years, we've cleaned up a lot of things in the code, but there are still areas that we can improve our code. And to Sunny's point, get away from doing all these stupid variances and things that you really, I mean, that's why we changed the whole accessory building code. We updated things because we are getting all of these little things. And it's like, okay, well, you shouldn't be, this isn't what we should be talking about. We should be getting more people in here, building homes, businesses. Right. And if our codes are set up, it will actually protect us, and we will get the developments that we want as a community in the areas that we want them.
Right. And they'll know what to expect before they even
come. You have to come before us. It'll be able something you can come in, pay your fee to the city, can sign off on it, and we can get that.
Yep.
So, and for those that weren't here back in 2016, we kind of did a similar, we had an economic design day where we brought in, I shared this with Sunny, and I should also share it with everybody else that hasn't seen it, but we did, back in 2016, Southeast Minnesota together gave out 2 grants of $1,500 to do an economic design study. And what that meant was that there was University of Minnesota Extension Design Services consultants came into Orinoco and Goodview. Goodview is a small suburb of Winona. So we were given $1,500 to support the staff coming in. There was 3 or 4 of them at least. But we also invited, as a 1-day session, I gave them a tour of the city in September of 2016, I think it was. We also we invited residents, we had some residents, we had business owners, we had a couple real estate developers, real estate people, and some developers and residents, and they gave us a picture of how they would like to see all this input went into our 1-day session And we came out with outcomes, and it all centered around sewer, of course, because that's when we were starting to look at sewer systems. So that was kind of the motivator. So let's start thinking about how we want to be developed. So there was a list of all the different things people would like historically, and also at the intersection as well. And so a lot of that still applies today, I think you find if you look at it. But the one thing that we didn't look at, and this is what came out of our plan or the planning and zoning meeting last month, was the lot sizes. We've talked about it, but Stantec in their presentation, they started giving us some ideas where we maybe would have smaller lots. And we went around and he circled the different areas that we've zoned about where we could look at different ones. And he gave us a lot of data from the lot sizes. I feel like I'm preaching to the choir because we were all there. But I do think that's a very worthwhile effort. And I think, I think that'd be something that Stantec could build on what they've already done with the expertise that they have. They would help complement us going forward, because I do think density is important. And yes, we're noted in the community for having large lots. Large lots means bigger homes. And of course, that generates property taxes as well. But there's probably a line where we need to look at people don't want big yards. And right now we need to offer that variance. So
Yeah, there's room for both.
yeah,
You
there's room for
balance
both.
in the mix.
Yeah.
In reality.
Right.
And that's what the surveys and the needs of the community are. You need a balance of affordable housing, and you need your also big lots, but you need everything. And you ideally want to have it mapped out where you want that as a city. Then the people, the developers, everybody knows, oh, this is where I can build this. This is where I can do this.
And that's, one thing too that I will add is that when you're talking about aging in place, and I know for my parents, it was very important for them to stay in their house, because that's what they knew. And it's kind of like, I'm thinking that it would be helpful if the city wants, like a senior living arrangement where there's congregate dining and some of those social kind of options for them to stay within the community that they know and love, and have some stability in there too. So just a thought. But and speaking of planning and zoning, and in my experience, planning and zoning commissioners have been paid. They play a very significant and integral role in helping define the city and making those, recommendations and all the thought process that goes into that. And I just want to throw that out there as well for council to consider as a possibility as we're developing the budgets as well. That will take a code adjustment, I believe. But we can write that up. And
are they appointed or elected?
They're appointed.
Appointed. Okay.
Yeah. Because again, your council is still in charge of everything. So they are still appointed, not elected, but they receive some remuneration for their
So the payment is to non-council members on the commission, or do city council members get paid for being on the commission and their salary?
See, I'm going to say that I have never been involved with a city where the city council people were like spread all over and into everything. My experience has been, there's been like one council liaison to the different committees. But so my recommendation for 2023, when you're determining those two, will be to have one person designated. And if you want to do an alternate, you can do that to make sure that, somebody is able to come back and represent or speak to discussion in addition to the minutes that we're already getting from the different committees. But I want council members to be able to focus on being council members. And staff to be in a position to give that kind of support that you need. The same with planning commission or other commissions or committees that you have, to be able to support that. But not to say that your other committees aren't contributing importantly to the city as well. But the significance of the work that the Planning and Zoning Commission does is, in my view, worthy of some, just a per meeting kind of thing.
I agree.
No,
I know the work that Paul does. That's above and beyond.
it is.
I guess my comment regarding our planning and zoning, the $12,000, I think I agree with Paul, I'm probably the council does too. I think it's a very worthwhile service. And I think that just because we have developers calling us that, when can I connect? And we tell them mid to late 2023 or late 2023, that they can invest and start doing some infrastructure within their own developments in 2023 before they actually hook up.
Were you at on that?
Today.
Riley?
That's not
Where are
it.
you at?
Yeah,
It's on page 5.
That's why I'm trying to go, okay, where are you at?
Just a planning and zoning. It's the middle of page 5.
I see it now. Okay.
Yeah. So I know there's interest out there, but I can see us taking as a proposal or discussion item for sure, the 12,000, probably even doubling it, or maybe even 30,000 or something like that, because I do think it's going to become more and more of a necessity for council to make good decisions, as well as P&Z too. I don't know we could ask Stantec too, what they envision. They're very much aware of our project, where we're at, and what they would envision, but I would think there should be a nice size increase in those services.
My recommendation would be to do an RFP for those planning services. And that's a council decision, of course.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you that the actual that's reflected there of 4,000 is really, what did we figure that only went through May invoicing?
Probably.
Because their invoicing is, significantly behind the work that was actually, because I know in talking with Joe Palin, he said that 12,000, remember I mentioned to you, Mayor, that he had said that 12,000 is pretty much spent. And that was,
I think that was on the last
month and
deal
stuff.
that you had, right?
Last P&Z meeting, I think he said something like that. I remember that now too.
So
No more vice
Yeah,
versa.
we can have.
Or more, maybe it was a council meeting. I don't know, but I remember that now you said that.
But and I'm not saying that Stantec won't come out ahead in the RFP process, but I do think it's important.
Have more than
What-
one person.
Well, and you're right now, you are operating under a Stantec master agreement that's dated 2006.
Oh, wow.
And so even the planning agreement that you approved and entered into just last fall, late, whatever,
Yeah, September.
is references back to that 2006 master agreement.
The rates have changed, but the agreement is still.
The rates have changed, but I'm trying to get from Joe those updated fees
sure.
and haven't gotten them.
Mhm.
He said, well, they just show up kind of on the bill. So, you know, much like I was envisioning, much like your fee schedule, where that's reviewed on an annual basis, that you would have a recurring document, even though the numbers are changing. But it's difficult for me to, as I look at the invoices that are coming in, I don't know if, you know, if it's meeting cost of say $120 or whatever per meeting is.
Yeah, you can't benchmark or compare it to anything.
Yeah. So kind of tying up those things.
Sure.
And the other thing, as we determined with the Wangsness and Frederickson variances and such, there really was some ambiguity in terms of what were our planners really doing for us in terms of, you know, what were they taking care of, what were we supposed to be taking care of. So just, I think an RFP in developing that scope is really helpful too, so that everybody is on the same page.
And to that, I think it's timely, because we're going to be talking about job descriptions and positions and all of that in, you know, for personnel committee, and we're updating policies, personnel policies and all that. So it might be timely.
Yeah.
I tell you, in every organization that I've been a part of, going out for RFP is a regular process on a schedule. It's transparency. It also ensures, in this case, the city is getting the best value for the services it's paying for. Because when you go out for RFP and you get all your bids back, if suddenly everybody else is way lower, you're like, well, what am I paying for? Why am I paying a premium? Maybe you're paying for something that others aren't providing, but maybe you're also, somebody else goes, oh, I can do this, this, and this. And you're like, wait a second, we're not getting that now. So it's just a good thing to do as a practice. I mean, we do it all the time at Mayo. I do it in my professional organizations. We do it. And at the end of the day, it does save the city money. And this is you want. Again, they can win it. That's fine. But every so often, as a council, you should go out and just reassess. Are we getting the market rate? Are we getting all the services you want?
And it gives you a fresh look at what's out there, what's available.
And that way, there's also no, again, just transparency. You're not always like, look, 2006, we've been Stantec. They've got everything, the sewer, the city contract, this, and now, you know, so now it's a Stantec sort of like inside edge thing. Well, okay, let's just see, is there somebody else? Maybe there isn't, maybe there is.
Yeah.
At least you went and did the process.
I agree. I agree.
And I think it protects the city.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So sticking with planning and zoning, I guess they're significantly over budget.
On the engineering fees, yeah.
On those engineering
68,
fees.
okay.
Now, is some of that going to be?
Reimbursable.
It's reimbursable.
Yeah, it's reimbursable.
Right.
45,000.
So that's the state that'll be reimbursed, yeah. So that's tricky to look at.
Right, but that, in my view, should be perhaps coded differently too, so that you're seeing,
Yeah.
you know, like when you talk about what's in reimbursements, well, you know, that you should have an engineering.
No, you've got the two for the reimbursable, but you also have the engineering fees that are way up there at 68,000.
Yep.
Are those going to come back, or what was that spent for?
I can check into that.
Would you, because I mean, it's like we got 35,000 for a budget. We're at 68 already this year.
What did we ask?
There were some studies.
Yeah, we did the track or did we do that? No,
Which,
we never did the road. Oh, we did do the road one. We did the road one.
wasn't there a study on the path up by your neighborhood?
Yeah, but we had a budget for 35,000. We were still on that supposedly with that whole thing was in budget. Remember when we looked at that?
Yeah.
And the fees we were there with what was budgeted last year. That's what I'm trying to figure out where the 68,000
Yeah, jumped.
when we budgeted 35. And look at that for the years prior. I mean, we were 19, 16, 20.
Yeah, the year prior, we really did.
Well, and again, this is just a foundational discussion kind of thing, so that these kind of things, and Renee and I'll go back
So what
and
was
we'll look at
actual?
some of the transactions and see, you know, what might have comprised the number, and each workshop will get better and better.
So I'm looking at the 2021 actual.
Yeah, because we were 382,000.
34,000.
Yeah, we're about 260 over the 2021. 360,000.
But then we
Yeah,
were,
we don't have a breakdown of what,
Yeah,
68,000, I guess.
I was
but
just
then
gonna
look
ask.
at 2020. I think it's, to me, this looks like coding issues. Cause look at 2020.
Or is some of this the start of water and sewer?
Yeah, that's what I was
may have gotten
wondering
put
if that
into
was.
this And then not
Water
be
and sewer
then
could have
reimbursed
been
back or something.
Reimbursed, but it could be the engineering fees is our master contract with Stantec, so it could be what's being used and what could have been our part of our could have been part of our Riverburg Hills design work.
Riverwood.
Which should have been.
That wouldn't,
You know, some of these, without looking at this, there may be some journal entries that maybe that shouldn't be in there, that should be reimbursable or someplace else. I don't know. We don't know that.
And if you look down below the next one below it too.
I wouldn't take these for granted, but I'd just say that it needs to be reviewed to make sure.
Yeah, and again,
Reimbursable legal fees, 26,000.
yeah, because that was over by 26,000 and some change
where we got?
Right, the next one
below
below it.
Oh,
for legal.
oh, the year before. Well. No, LMC paid for all that, didn't they?
Might be good to understand what is really going on some of these that are way over.
Yeah. Okay.
Right, and remember, we're coding the
You get audited.
The PFA stuff.
$24,000.
is it even in the general fund?
Because we're already at 24,000.
It might be in the water fund, but some of it might have gotten coded here too.
6,000 on that.
So we can definitely, you
Yeah.
know, do some.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's a huge jump off of that too.
And part of this exercise, quite frankly, is for me to determine too, what reports are you gonna find most helpful to you as council members?
To me,
Yeah.
this is very helpful.
Yeah, because we
See
can
where,
take
where are we at from a council meeting perspective, you know, where are we at? And maybe it's just a matter of we get in there and we're able to highlight anything that's over a certain threshold and we can understand it and talk about it because find it, you know, if it is a coding issue, we find it right away and correct it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't happen that we see it a year later, you know. I think
Because I'm
to me,
looking
that
at
would be
legal
helpful.
fees too, because we're almost at our budget for legal fees. We're only in first part of August.
So I guess one of the things that would be helpful to me, an additional thing would be some sort of description. I don't know, somewhere, like there's just randomly another planning and zoning line. What is that? You know what I mean? And then there's the ordinance. Why are there so many?
Yeah, what's the definition?
Yeah,
What
what's
typically
supposed
goes
to be
into
on
How
that
would you
account?
know? I'm just wondering how you know.
And
You
that's
don't.
what part of some of this issue might be, is you not knowing and putting it
don't.
somewhere.
Well, that's what I mean. It's like, how would you know? There's so many, it seems like there's a lot of redundancy and maybe even some unnecessary lines that just need to be eliminated. But to me, it would help if there was and I don't know, I'm real bad at spreadsheets and everything, but I feel like you could probably make a definition so that you could double check on that line. Like, is this really where it belongs? This is what it means. This is, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That would be helpful for me looking at this. And I would imagine it would be helpful to staff as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be the other thing.
Good point. The other thing is, as I'm looking at this, legal services has your auditing and accounting services in there as well.
Your legal services does?
Yeah,
But the auditing and accounting is over right now by 6,000, and it's only audit.
and I'm gonna tell you,
There is,
in part, I think that is, I've learned that in addition to your auditors doing the audit, their accounting staff is also doing your bank reconciliations, doing your quarterly payroll tax reports. So in my view, again, a finance person on staff, those kind of things would be taken care of in-house. At times, I'm gonna say
I would
significant savings.
Mm-hmm.
hope our next city administrator, city clerk treasurer or city administrator would have the finance wherewithal. So we don't have to incur these huge fees of, which a lot of it is reconciliation of, I mean, there was a lot.
Looking at those transactions
A lot
ahead of time.
a lot of journal entries to correct everything, and
Well,
it could have been avoided with experienced people on staff.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not a reflection on Renee, of course.
no.
Yeah.
So that is a lot of it, and just preparing for audit takes a lot of work. There's no question about that. But
I was just
if
thinking.
you look at the fees compared to previous years, they're about twice as much.
Yeah.
Right.
So I noticed some things.
So you can do it, Chris. You love it.
Okay, so.
See, Paul, we shifted away from pressure on you and took it up to legal. Did you have anything else you wanted to add? I would ask.
No. I said my piece, thank you.
Well said.
Although I will just echo, I really think we should have a financial person that really manages it. Again, every place I've ever been a part of, that's a special skill set, and to have somebody actually do that on a regular basis for consistency and bookkeeping, when you're operating funds at these sizes, proper accounting is important. And then all of these other fees and things that you have go down. So you actually recoup a lot of that cost back. And then you just have also better managed books, and you know where everything is.
Can we go back just to registration again, kind of when we're talking about this? Can someone explain to me contract labor and subcontracted services, and who does that entail if it's not?
What page are you on?
I'm sorry, 4.
Okay.
Under financial administration.
Ooh, where and what?
I guess.
I had to ask that too. I'd have to look back at my emails. Mary kind of helped me explain it, but basically it's just been.
So that could be one line again, maybe? Because isn't that the same, to me, that means the same thing.
I thought so too.
Which one, contract labor? Or-
Contract or
And
subcontract?
subcontracted.
There might be a need for it, but it needs a description,
Yeah,
I think. The contract, just looking at previous years, well, Jerry had Smith and Schaefer on both. They're
yeah.
both in
Oh.
41,500 and
Smith and Schaefer.
subcontract too, so it's back and forth.
One of them I think was kind of told to me, like one was one that does like work and one is one that provides like a service. So like your phones or whatever would be under like a subcontracted labor if they had to come in and do any repairs. And that's how I think they kind of explained it, but it's kind of intertwined and yeah.
Was that from the auditors?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I asked that question too, because I was like, which one am I supposed to be using? It was confusing. It still is.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's a good,
Yeah,
that's a good
and,
question.
and one thing we'll look at is the miscellaneous.
I was just gonna
in
ask
each of
miscellaneous.
these categories.
Yeah, because we're
You know,
open already.
Yeah, in my experience, miscellaneous is the absolute last place you want it. So I was gonna ask you, since you have the detail there, Mayor. So is contracted labor Smith and Schaefer as well as the audit and accounting service?
Yeah, they're in all three places.
They're all three places. So
Here's Smith and Schaefer under. I think that's contract. Yeah, contract labor.
Okay.
In 42,297. It's also here again, and this one here.
subcontracted, yeah,
And then if you go over to
the audit.
legal auditing. Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, not legal, that's all AP or flatteries.
But they're in
No, that
accounting.
was.
And
This is
contract.
auditing and accounting, it's here too.
They're in contract, subcontract, and auditing.
So it's,
It's like
And
cooking
then
the
you wonder
books.
why I'm confused when I go to write checks.
I can't imagine. I mean, it's just a lot.
You know, the same, but that one comes.
Okay.
That's it.
Other things to. I call, you know, I call you the fixer.
Mhm.
No, add it to my
If you look at it,
Except for she goes here, this needs to get done.
there's some comments, Jim?
We share.
Yeah, we were looking over
She
here
finds it
at
and
the
then she goes, you
training
know how to do it, so you do.
that there was for the fire department, and then which is on page 5. And then you look at the training that there is on page 6 for the first responders. For the budget, and the actual cost, if you kind of put those together, I didn't know if they kind of, because we were over, we're at 7,222 and a $4,500 budget. But if you put the other one, so I didn't know if they both kind of got intertwined, because if you look at the total, they're about the same, so.
And,
I'll let Kane respond to that. I know there's different, some people are first responders that aren't fire department people and.
Correct. And I think too, Councilmember Phillips, the training for the fire department is reimbursed through the state for new firefighters. So it says 7,200, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah.
So a lot of that money gets reimbursed back to us for the training of.
Okay, and I was just wondering if the two were together, if it was first responders were also firefighters, and it could have been that split between those two.
No, separate budgets, separate trainings, separate certifications, so completely separate.
So that it should have been reimbursable training expenses then that?
If you want to add another line item to this,
Or do
No, I
we-
was just,
do we
you know,
change
forget that
that?
back. I mean, that's,
It may come into miscellaneous revenues too, on the revenue
One
side.
of those miscellaneous.
Well, it's coming in as miscellaneous.
I'm just, yeah, I'm looking at
Well,
it now.
shouldn't it come back as,
Because there's no revenue. That's a good one.
because you've got,
The fire department doesn't have any revenues that I can see.
is it?
Same difference. What was that?
So who's loving the budget development process?
So fun.
The miscellaneous,
What are you looking for, income?
Yeah, on the income side, where might those?
which one are you on right now? Because I was looking at the R&M buildings too,
I saw that
you
too.
know, which is right at
We're
50
still on,
grand.
we're still on fire.
Okay, so
Hold that thought. Kane, I'm sorry. So on the fire state aids.
Yeah.
That's. Define that for me.
Oh,
is that on here, Sunny?
on the
It
first
is.
page.
On the first page, about halfway down, there's state grant income. And then fire state aids, and those are the two that, in my mind, may be where that's.
I wanna say that's the fire state aid is where I put the check I got, that was from training. I don't know if that's correct, but I think that's where I put it.
I believe that money goes to the department account.
that's where the training reimbursement comes back. So in the past year, that fire state aids, there's checks for 3,000 from Minnesota State, 230 from state fire training reimbursement, another $1,600 from state and then Minnesota State Fire STAT for 13,000 station or something. So there's.
So I believe what that is the state gives a small fire department aid to provide fire services, right?
Right.
And so based on population, based on certain details, that amount of money changes year to year. You know, this says 13,412 for the last 3 years. That formula changes every year. So we don't know exactly what that amount of money will be.
But what I hear you saying is the actual that's going in there on that account, even though it's budgeted relatively stable, has been those reimbursement for training, the offset to that. So I was just making sure that the fire state aids is not your mutual aid. That's totally separate and that's with you guys, correct?
Yep.
Okay. So those, I was right then, I'm like, yes, that there's where, okay, so then what did we say we spent on that?
72.
7222, and it looks like we got about 5 back.
And we were budgeted to get 13,000 back.
That's all been within the last couple of months too, that those high training.
because they're
Expenses.
recruiting and stuff too.
Exactly, yeah.
And the other piece too is that, you're saying that, oh, I'm sorry, Kate, that only applies to new training for,
The reimbursement side of
is only to the new.
training does, correct.
Okay.
But then there are, the Orinoco Volunteer Fire Department also has training credits that are available to us from the state. State has a lot of money for training. So what we can do is have a training and submit a reimbursement to the state for existing firefighters and new, and we can offset the cost of that training. That's available to us. I don't know where our credits are or how much of those vouchers are left, but each year there's always more state dollars than people are submitting reimbursement for. So we've never had an issue with a training getting reimbursed through the state.
Or not getting it reimbursed.
Not getting reimbursed, correct. There's always excessive money.
So what you're saying is really that'll zero out.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Relief Association contribution. Take it up.
Which one?
What page
Go
are
to
you
the
on?
fire department, page 5. The Relief
Oh.
Association contribution. I mean, we're on the plus side, but we had budgeted 13,000.
Well, that's an interesting number too, right?
That's the same number.
Sounds familiar.
Well, in that, I'm guessing is that 10%, right? Or no,
No.
this is budgeting, forget it.
So that state aid goes to the Relief Association. I misspoke earlier.
Why do we have it in two places then?
Well, it's revenue on the first page, but then it gets burst into
Oh,
that,
into the relief,
into that
yeah.
that
Okay.
contribution.
Okay.
The next one I had mentioned off of it was the building. I think with 49,000, an R&M building.
That's a head scratcher for me too, Jim.
Do we know
I'm sorry.
what's
It's on R&M. Okay, on page 6.
Repair and maintenance.
Okay, yeah, $49,992.
Was that what was done here in City Hall, the updates?
No.
No? Okay.
Could equipment have gotten in there? I mean, it wouldn't be that much, but.
No, I mean, that's way off.
I don't think
Was
we bought
this-
that much equipment or.
It's not the truck.
But that wouldn't be in the building.
No, it wouldn't be under the building though.
Well, no, we're not under, or wait,
Didn't
is
you
this,
didn't we have to replace
thought it was under
something
fire.
here, like a
They replaced the doors, the air
Oh.
conditioning.
air
last year.
conditioner? Yeah.
no, and
Some of that
the,
was last year.
but the sliding window, was that last year too?
Yeah.
Okay.
This year, we've replaced a few interior doors. I'm thinking we're around the $2,000, $2,500 mark for repair and maintenance building this year. That 49,000 jumps out as me as a possible coating error.
Yeah.
Journal entry type thing, yeah.
That's still under your fire department though.
Yeah, I was confused. I was thinking we're.
Yeah, it's under fire department.
Exactly, and I don't know what we've purchased at the fire department, period.
There would have been that kind
That's
of,
equal $50,000.
Yeah, what was the spend on that? Well, that was last year, the roll-up door. That was
What's the
last year.
generator?
The generator, we haven't made those.
Haven't paid for it yet.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, and the roll-up door was last year, right?
Yep, last year, air conditioner was last year.
Because you were over last year too, you had budgeted 8,500, you were 14,000. But the other years prior, you were well below what was going on, but that's a.
Well, and last year too, the overall budget for the fire department was less than budgeted. But yes, you're correct. We did go over as far as,
That line item, but I'm just saying, it wasn't like where we're at right now for this year. It's only August.
like I say, that strikes me as a typo or an error.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
Because last year, the 12,000,
14,000, whatever.
this Guardian buildings, 901. The expenditures report shows that 12,647 and 14,000. Heating and air, $5,000 for the air conditioner, $2,700 for the overhead door. This is all last year, so.
This year, we're over by about 15 grand already.
Another one to look into.
More than that.
I got a box around.
It's
Okay.
only August.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
It's 50 grand.
Not much else we can do about it right now.
We're by about 15 now, or
42.
But these are the kind of things that, in my view,
Oh, yeah.
as council members, you're ultimately responsible for the finances of the city. And so for me, professionally, it's important to be as transparent as I can with you. And granted, this is before my time and much of it's before Renee's time. We are doing the best we can. And by bringing this information to you, you could flag some things for us that we can get to faster than if I were to sit and do a transaction review of everything since January 1. At least this way, we start really picking at the heavy ones that draw attention to us, and when we know better, we do better, and we'll just keep making progress for the city.
Yeah, and that's how I say it, you know, if we had something like this for the council meetings, just to review quickly to see, you know, if we're
Keep our eyes on it. Yeah.
way over where we're in August and we're $2,000 away from overall budget,
And,
you know.
Yeah, that's-
and in each of our committee meetings,
Yeah.
like not the whole thing, but just like that would be
Right.
so helpful.
Right. And by bringing this information to the council, you can then, take it to, but I do want to get to where we're able to generate some reports directly to the committees themselves in the interim, because you're all represented on different committees.
Can I go to the next one, which is on page 7, street maintenance?
Okay.
How did we get a negative $5,992?
So
Excellent question.
let me go back to this 49,000 on the sheet that you gave us earlier, or gave me this budget comparison sheet as of June 30th. This R&M 42,901 R&M buildings, which showed $8,500, but it was 3,000 year to date as of June 30th, it was $3,895.
So we only have to look in July.
So July, something happened, yeah.
Okay.
What'd you buy, a truck?
I can't hide that.
It's that new car in his garage.
Now, is this the one that I gave you all at council last time? What's the date on that?
It's 7/14, July 14th.
I wasn't here. Oh, yeah. And our meeting was on
Did you give them
the 16th,
19th.
19th. I think this is the one that all of you got in the,
There's a budget comparison, something pulled up together.
yeah, I think you all got that in your packets for the last council meeting.
About 10 minutes early, just FYI.
Okay, so you want to talk about street maintenance, Jim?
Yeah, I was just wondering how we ended up with a negative $5,000 street maintenance. That's pretty good.
It's only
How'd you
10,
do that,
it's only
Katie?
10 pages and we're on 7,
That's right.
so.
That's right. So we were reimbursed almost $6,000.
Yeah.
We'll check into that. I got a box on it.
Page 77.
Yes.
Okay, 7.
And
Under 43,003.
street maintenance.
See, in 2021,
Yeah,
you
there's-
spent over $40,000 on future roads. and
That happened in
maintenance.
July. That happened in July too. 42,303. Street maintenance. Year to date, street maintenance, 42,505 had a. '22 had 75,000 in the budget versus 20,000 in your report.
How much was it supposed to be? 75,000?
No, we had. Oh, no, that's the previous year. Forget that. Okay, here we go. 20,000 and we had a 4,360 credit, a minus year to date in June 30th. So I'm not sure where it's coming
So
from.
something's increasing that. Yeah. Got a box.
Having said that, I should go back and look at this R&M in the fire department. 42,901.
Then we have, there's another one,
901.
on page 8.
8,500. Yeah, it's still, okay, instead of, at the end of June, instead of 49,992, the current year to date, end of June 30 was $730. So it was just something.
So I'm seeing kind of a common theme where like our electricity is up, our workman's comp insurance is up over what we budgeted. Well, electricity was on one of the previous ones. So, let's see.
Electricity.
Property insurance under parks.
Yeah, property insurance is up. We're
Well,
seeing.
what is that under parks? And why has it only been used in 1 year, in 2021?
Which one, Dana?
Property insurance?
Under parks,
Under parks.
thing.
Yeah.
Like, what is it? What is?
I'm gonna say that it's insurance is kind of one of those.
What do you split
You
it
know,
up?
Ryland, you can share your
No, go
experience too, but it's kind of, yeah. It's like they group all the stuff together and then you get to split it out, right? They come up with one number and we have to determine, okay, what assets did this cover and what, those kind of things, and do a split. And sometimes it's something that's taken into consideration for maybe 2021, maybe it was the building or the pavilion or
It's
something.
lumped like camp, like park gets lumped into one, but really it's Orinoco Park,
like
it's the
that.
community center and the other parks. So it gets split like 2 or 3 different ways, but it's all lumped under parks. That's why on some of these, you'll see work comp is 0 on, well, like what you're seeing on property insurance, but it might be, if you go down to community center, there's property insurance there. If you go to.
But it's consistent. I'm just wondering why it's been only one time. Like, is it a whatever? As long as you guys
I
know.
don't think it's gonna be a coding issue.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm wondering. That's, it seems like maybe one of those things that isn't a necessary line, but that's for you guys.
And can we go up to, you see under Parks and Recreation, 45,120, salaries and wages?
Because everybody gets split, it gets, their salaries and wages get split amongst all the departments.
Because so it's 0, but it's at 51,000, so.
Yeah.
Right? Am I right
There's no
about that?
expenses to it.
Is that weird?
It should be
Yeah.
getting split, because when Ryland developed the budget over the last 2 years, he did do some splits.
Yeah, we did.
But in Tyler Tech software, it doesn't
It
get
doesn't
split.
split.
Okay.
And so,
So we
that's
could look
one of the
over
things-
some places.
and that's one of the reasons that we're,
Okay.
2 things. One, it affects the accounts individually. And then also it affects, we got a bill from, for your audit on workers' comp that they want another 7,000. Was it $7,000?
$7,000.
Yeah. And part of that is because all of the guys are in general maintenance. And so I'm working with the auditor to see if we can adjust that. And do some splits out, because your seasonal people are strictly seasonal, right?
Right.
You know, so they're parks and trails more than.
Yeah, I see where your groundskeeping here, if you look at like the wage salaries and wages, we're at $89,000, we only budgeted 51.
Yeah.
So
So
so that's where it kind of.
And it's August 3rd.
So am I hearing that this is a limitation of the software we're using?
Sometimes,
That's kind of pigeonholing us into.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily, you know, I'm gonna say, you know, to her credit, Renee has cleaned up a lot of errors that she inherited. There are others like this, kind of the spreads that are still yet to come. So stay tuned. So, but it affects, and again, I'm good with the accounting stuff. The Tyler Tech software is totally new to me. So to the extent that I can be helpful to her, I
It's
am.
totally what?
Totally new to me.
Oh, okay.
So to the extent that I can help her, I do. But Tyler Tech has been very helpful in terms of answering the questions and walking her through what she needs to get to do that. So that's on the list for us in
And-
terms of doing that splits.
In the system, it does list all of the 3 separate
So it breaks it down.
accounts.
Yep.
We've just never utilized it, actually breaking it down into
Oh.
those. So it's something that was like set up but never implemented. So now, before I didn't want to touch anything until I knew for sure how we wanted to do this, because I didn't know if in the past they were just doing journal entries to adjust everything at the end. But they did tell me we can do it where it will automatically do it for us, which is probably what we want to do. But like I said, I wasn't gonna change anything on that end until I knew for sure
Yeah.
that's what we wanted.
And again, part of the, so there's, you know, you have your software piece. And then you also have your accountants and auditors that are looking at it and doing those many adjusting journal entries. But those aren't really occurring until your fiscal year,
Is over,
12/31 is handed. And then We just got our budget
Right.
presentation, right?
Right.
Last month. So
So,
that's the timing.
So we're missing, so for us to be on top of it is better on an ongoing basis, and then that way at least we know instead of being a surprise halfway through June.
So
so like employee health benefits, PRA, payroll, you know, they're all significantly over, and it's based on what you're saying, because it's lumping
Lumping everything
things
together.
together.
So we're coming up on 8 o'clock, a couple of 2 hours. So do we want to try and, we can continue on, but do we want to try and,
Right.
okay, well.
But I didn't see anything else I have a question about.
Okay.
Well, that's not true. I was just curious, I just put a question mark by cell phone reimbursement. Who is reimbursed for cell phone stuff?
The full-time employees, Kane, Renee,
Jim. and
Jim,
Corey.
and
Okay.
Corey gets it too, as well as myself.
Okay. I didn't know that. That's probably a personnel thing that I'm not involved with, so I just was curious.
Yeah, since you guys don't have work phones for us and we do a lot of remote stuff,
So-
we use
Oh,
our own,
yeah.
so they
The
give
thing
us
is,
a
there's nobody
stipend
under
basically.
Can
is
you,
what it is.
Sunny, could you comment on what you would like to do next, based on what you've heard tonight?
What I would like to do next is, Renee and I will go back and, pull out some of the detail. But this kind of gives you an idea too, kind of, you know, what your history has been. And I'd like to set up another workshop. Because as we know, as we walk through these things, yeah, as we walk through these, progressions, versions of the budgets that will come your way, it will get easier and easier, but we do have a time crunch. So the sooner we can set up a follow-up, the better.
Sometime after the 22nd.
Yeah.
We got Gold Rush
We're
Creek.
kind of swamped the
That
next
would
2
be
weeks.
great.
Yeah.
Goes after.
That's how we're kind of feeling coming off national night. out.
Yeah, I can't believe you're still here. I'm sorry.
I was here at 7 o'clock this morning.
That's what I'm saying. Oh my God. I hope you slept well last night.
No,
You didn't, because you were thinking of it.
I didn't sleep well.
September
My
30th,
kids
we have
running
to
around my
have
house.
your
too.
preliminary
Oh.
budget submitted.
Thank you for your work on this, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
So it's a preliminary budget, we can't go higher, and we finalize it in December.
So we gotta go high and then come down.
If we come down, that's great, but we can't
We
go
can't go
higher.
lower.
than
Right. Yeah, we can't increase it because of what increase.
So a thing to think about is inflation. And what's the difference gonna be on property values? Because that's where we're gonna get caught, I think, on,
Yeah, and I think,
Property values is to our benefit.
well, if it goes down, it won't be.
Yes,
they'll pay less
that's
tax.
true.
But I think the other thing too, and we started talking about this at the personnel committee, is through all this budgeting, we have to start looking at the treatment facility, staffing that.
Yeah.
I mean, I see that there's definitely gonna be some increases in staff.
Budget proposal.
Yeah.
You were gonna
That's
look,
covered with user fees too, but there are still public works involved with that.
Yeah.
you were gonna look at that service too that there wasn't there a?
Yep, I'm doing an RFP.
Okay, because I think that's makes a lot of sense to go that direction, at least to get started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let them work out on the kinks, right?
Yeah,
And then
absolutely. And
once-
then once it's done, yeah.
Yeah, and let them, be responsible for somebody's sick. That's not our problem. You send in the replacement.
So one question I have in terms of what we talked about with Paul, planning and zoning, do we want to put that on the next council agenda to talk about? Or do we want to
Just put in the budget first. And then talk
Put it-
Well, I
about
think
budget and
PNC, Paul, can you comment on what PNC's next step is regarding this
the RFQ.
RFP for the lot size?
So we're,
What do you plan to talk about at
yeah,
the meeting?
next week's meeting is basically going to formalize exactly what we want
Scope.
in there, scope of that project. And then it was to go out for RFP, to present to council.
Right.
And then
You're generating the scope, the council is not generating it. So we provide the discussion whether or not we're gonna do it or what we're gonna do.
Yeah, but our goal was to actually kind of get it all together and this is what we want, present it to you. There's the package, you say yay or nay. And then it goes out.
So is Stantec putting together the scope plus
No, I think
submitting
that
a quote?
we are, and then,
So
Yeah, we have to.
And it's only a-
It's our
Just a minute,
job-
just a minute.
it's our job to define the scope of what services we want.
Okay,
Stantec did provide at the last meeting 3 things that they said you should consider in your scope. 1, best practice. So capturing the data for the best practices of what, other communities in the area have done. 2, some sort of community engagement sessions. And then 3, potential to draft the actual write the code. Those are 3 things that you should probably consider in your scope. And then, it's for us to discuss if there's other things that we want, put that together, and then they would respond to it. But that's because I think, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, or Jim, they wanted to almost like give us, like, here's for these services, this is what we're gonna do. But we should it's always best interest for the city, AKA us, to decide what do we want you to do, not have someone tell you, this is what I'm gonna do and here's how much it's gonna cost you, right? It's what do we want?
Right, because we could be getting services we really don't want and they're charging us for
And
them.
so that's what the discussion is next week,
Right.
is what do we need, AKA want, and then we ask for pricing for that. Is that correct?
Yes, because then you're comparing to apples, right? And when it comes to professional services, it's not always low price. You will do the interviews and really feel, who might bring something the best to the city, because that's who we're all working for, right? The residents. So, but yeah, I totally agree with what Paul's saying is we control the scope.
So the other thing I was referencing is we suggested a stipend for Paul or P and Z that's not council, or, and I think it's up for discussion, but I think being that budget is coming, we should talk about it as a council so we can plan. If the council says yes, then we need to plan and budget.
yeah, that's all part of our budget program.
Yeah,
Our next
I think,
workshop is
yeah.
continuation.
Right,
Okay.
because it wouldn't go into effect until
January.
January 1 anyway.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And they couldn't vote for themselves anyway.
I didn't know if it had to be a line item on the actual council. Okay.
All right, good discussion.
Very good, very good. This was informative.
This was
I really enjoyed it. This was great.
I'll make a motion, the meeting adjourned. 8 p.m.
Second.
Thank you all.
All right, all those in favor? signify by
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign, approved, meeting adjourned. Thank you.